Good afternoon, everyone. Now, I don't remember exactly what he said that day, but it was something along the lines of, whatever it is they said I didn't do it. Now, considering that this was the Fort Bend County Courthouse, it wasn't too crazy what he said. I mean, I wasn't struck by the words in particular. I wasn't struck in particular by the way he dressed. I mean, he was wearing a panel plaid shirt over jeans. He had a big bushy beard and curly brownish red hair. But what struck me the most was the reaction to him. This man came into the courtroom, went right up to that banister that separates the gallery from the front of the courthouse where attorneys like myself had gathered to conduct business, and he said this with a little bit of a smirk on his face. I looked to the judge and noticed that he too had a knowing smile. Then I saw a few of my colleagues also recently licensed, and they were smiling and now moving towards the gentleman. I had to know, who is this man? Who is this guy that everybody wants to get to know? Who is this? So I turned to my buddy Wade. I said, Wade, who's that? And he's like, Tammy, you haven't met Pat yet? And I was like, oh, I get it now. See, Pat had a reputation. Everyone loved him. Everyone loved him. I'm saying the judges loved him. The other attorneys loved him. There was something magnetic about the way he connected with people. And so I said, hey, I'm not going to miss this opportunity to meet him. I said, Wade, you got to introduce me to him. So Wade comes, he's like, hey, Pat, have you met Tammy? And Pat instantly made me feel welcome. We immediately exchanged contact information and scheduled some time to connect for coffee the next week. We met at Joseph's. It was a nice little coffee and cigar shop, not too far from the courthouse. And over the course of that interaction, I got to see what it was about Pat that made the difference. And there was something that would allow me to also be able to pour out to other people. Pat made space for a first-generation Nigerian American like myself to feel comfortable in an area where she wasn't familiar, in an area where she didn't know anyone. I could ask substantive legal questions. I could get access to resources that I didn't even know existed, all because he made space for me. The reason why I share this story as we open up is because I think that and a couple of other interactions I've had, both as a mentor and a mentee, right, have similar characteristics that I think we can apply as individuals looking for mentorship and individuals wanting to provide mentorship in the legal space. I believe if we understand how to navigate, how to make space for others, and how to feel comfortable taking up space as individuals who are seeking out leadership, I think that we can help move our industry forward. And so today, as we speak, my goal is to ensure that I inspire and equip you with both principles and strategies. So I want us to feel motivated to go out there, but I also want us to be empowered to actionably make a difference so that we can foster powerful mentee-mentor relationships that positively impact you, that positively impact your team, that help your bottom line, and impact your community. Because when we are able to inspire and encourage others to take up space and become the leaders that they too can be, the ripple effect can be felt throughout. All right? And we're going to take it pretty simply. We're going to start by talking about some of those common challenges that we all face. And then we'll talk about a simple framework in terms of making space. And then we'll open it up for questions. So as I've been preparing for this particular presentation, I've been asking myself, if we know that mentorship and coaching are so vital, why do these programs so often fail? I mean, all of you in this room obviously prioritize it, and that speaks to your character. That speaks to the fact that you all want your teams to grow, you want to grow. But yet, even though that desire is there, we still sometimes miss the mark. I think this stems from the wide range of challenges that we face as attorneys. See, I don't know if it's because I'm a first-generation Nigerian, but I didn't really hear about mentorship and coaching when I was growing up. I heard about coaching in terms of sports. I knew all the sports teams had coaches, so I figured, okay, they help people. But in terms of mentorship, I didn't really hear that until I entered the legal profession. It was there I started to hear, oh, you need a mentor. Oh, you need a mentor. And I got to experience a coach because I have not one athletic bone in my body. So there was no sports, right? But when I got to law school, I was part of moot court. So I had someone who was able, or I had a couple of people who were able to coach me in that particular skill. So I got a taste of that. But everyone said, you need a mentor, you need a mentor, you need a mentor. And I didn't know exactly what that meant or how to go about it. I felt a little like the character in this book. I don't know if anybody remembers this. This child will go, are you my mother? So, are you my mentor? Are you my mentor? I was looking, who could be that perfect person? You know, I think it's kind of like today's reality TV shows. You're looking for the one, that one mentor who supplies everything that you need, right? And that is unrealistic. I think especially considering today's day and age. Here's the reality. Our workplaces have changed. The technology has changed. The way we interact with people have changed. Our workspaces right now have up to 5 generations of different types of people. Talking about people who remember the good old days, right? And they're kind of attached to them. And then you have people like my younger sister who says that I'm old, and I completely disagree, right? And she's like, I don't like the way you text. You use too much punctuation. Right? All of these components are put together within our different communities, and we have to navigate that. And I believe as a result of the different challenges that come with the different technology, the different experiences we've had in the practice, the different cultures that we're now connected to, the fact that our world has changed, we have to have a new paradigm when it comes to what it means to mentor and coach. It's absolutely critical for us to prioritize this, because if we don't, we will not be able to inspire and encourage the leaders who are going to take our place. One of the things that I've noticed, one of the roles that I had the opportunity to play is I worked with a legal tech company that did coaching. So I was one of their primary coaches, and I worked with attorneys of all different, firms of all different sizes and attorneys of all different fields. And one interesting thing that I started to notice when I spoke to some of our older attorneys is they had no one to pass their legacy on to. They had worked and worked and worked and worked, and they didn't have these relationships. And some of the folks who were younger, who were working for them, had resentment towards them because they didn't feel like they were welcomed and their experiences were valued. And so there was this huge chasm. Yet, even though those folks were resenting them, they still desired leadership. It wasn't that they didn't want to be mentored. It wasn't that they didn't see that there was value in them. They just wanted to know that the value in them was also received. And so we have, again, this avalanche, this iceberg. It's not just about the fact that we don't have time. It's not just about the fact that we have different priorities competing for us or different fires to put out. It's the whole scope of things that we have to look at. So we have to be very intentional about prioritizing what it looks like to create space and to help people with regards to mentorship and coaching. We have to navigate the different expectations and the different perspectives that the different people who come into your law firms have. If you don't, you are not creating a law firm that will scale or a law firm that will last. And that's the sad reality. That is the sad reality. And again, one of the things that I found is this lack of perspective. So often when we're talking about the different personalities or the different generations that we see within our law firms, it's not that one side is wrong or one side is right. You're looking at the same thing from 2 different perspectives. And it's often required that we come to a place where we figure out or respect the fact that we have these competing ideals or these 2 sides that reflect the same coin, right? Now, one of the things that we know that coaching and mentorship matter. But even though we're facing all of these challenges, the challenges of the different perspectives, the challenges of the different technology, right, we still can't lose sight of the valuable benefits of coaching and mentorship. So, one of the things you might ask is, why should I invest in it? Why should I be in a space like this? Right? And decide that amongst all the different things that are competing for my time, I should invest in creating a mentorship program or nurturing the future generation. Well, one of the things is you're creating a sense of belonging within your firms. And that problem that I was just speaking about with regarding succession, regarding legacy, regarding growth, those things are curtailed when you create that sense of belonging. When we're talking about law firms, you are able to retain better quality individuals when they feel like there is a purpose and they matter. Again, many law firms are able to maybe hire, but are you able to retain? The retention is not just based off of the best benefits and the best costs. At some point, particularly in some of our younger generations, it's not just about the money. I know many people can attribute to that. Many people can probably connect that there's something that we want more, that people want more purpose, more meaning. And so we have to create this sense of belonging. And here's the thing, if you are able to retain that talent, if you are able to create that loyalty, you're going to see your bottom line increase because you are no longer losing money with regards to retraining, rehiring, redoing all the things you've done with other individuals. This is something I've experienced in my own firm. Most of the individuals who have come to my firm, they love working with me. And again, every now and then, you might have a few people who are a little different. That's just the reality of business. That's the reality of doing this type of work. But for the most part, are you creating an environment where someone wants to be there? Are you creating a space where someone feels like they belong? This picture is a group of my co-mentees that I was describing in that program earlier. When I said a couple of my buddies knew the guy, this was that group. And there was this sense of belonging. Every week, we met up at one of the local breakfast spots. It's called the Breakfast Club. If you're ever in Houston, you should check it out. It's one of our staples. And our mentors would meet with us there. And we would be able to talk about life, talk about our cases, talk about the things that matter to us. And we created this sense of belonging. I'm not a morning person, but somehow they got me there at 7 a.m. Like, I don't know how, through Houston traffic. But it was because they created a sense of belonging for me. Not only that, when we prioritize this, we nurture growth in the individuals we're investing in and in ourselves. We're able to see our law firms flourish. We're able to see the people flourish. We're able to see our cases handled with better care and greater satisfaction. We're able to see our clients feel like they're seen and heard, right? Growth for everyone. And then again, for your bottom line. When you have people who are showing up, who are excited about doing the work, who feel like you are actually helping them, right? They're going to be excited to continue to follow your leadership. Okay? So we want to make sure that we prioritize that. Now, I wanted to take a quick, not detour, but I wanted to go into a little bit more about the differences between coaching and mentorship, because I think that these are valuable distinctions to make, and both are extremely valuable. Now, I've been speaking primarily about what it means to give mentorship and coaching, but I also want to encourage those of us who are law firm leaders to seek out professional advancement, seek out coaching. So one of the things that I've had to do in my law firm is, in addition to leading my team, I've decided to invest in myself. I've sought out coaching specifically, and coaching usually involves more specific outcomes and objectives. So we're talking about skill sets, specific things that you want to do in order to improve what you're presenting. Now, as lawyers, I don't know if any of you had this experience, but I didn't see any leadership courses in law school. Did anybody? Yeah, if you're running your own firm, you're expected to lead. And believe me, leadership is a skill. It is not something that is intuitive. It is something that you can learn. It is something that you can develop. It is something that you can invest in. And coaching can help you do that, right? So you can look out for specific outcomes, okay? You can also make it easier to measure specific things when we're talking about coaching. So coaching, you can identify specific targets, specific KPIs that you want to look at in terms of measuring, have I improved in this specific skill or objective? And it's usually more short term. So you might be able to enroll in a coaching program that's 6 months, maybe a year, but it's usually start and stop time to improve in a particular skill. And then finally, it may involve someone that's not necessarily doing what you're doing, particularly as business owners. So maybe you're trying to grow with regards to marketing in your firm. You can seek out a marketing coach, right? So it doesn't have to be a lawyer specifically, although that can help. But one of the things that I've found beneficial in my own practice and in my own life is sometimes looking outside of the box of our legal industry. At times, our industry can be a tad bit behind, right? And sometimes some of these other businesses, other professions can give us some guidance. So seeking out coaches that might not be in the exact same profession might be of value to you. Now, when we're talking about mentorship, this is usually broader, right? Oftentimes, it involves having a trusted advisor. If you look on Google, if you look online and look at the definition, it's going to specifically talk about this element of trust. So it's usually an expert or someone who has had a similar experience. They're ahead of you in the game. They're usually actively doing what you're doing. So if we're talking about sports analogies, even though, again, I can't play sports, this might be the person who is playing your position on the team, whereas the coach is the actual coach. They're not in the same game with you, but they see the play and they know how to navigate it. Okay? And this, again, often includes professionals on a similar path. Now, in terms of our law firms, what might this look like? You might find that you have to wear both hats. You might play both roles. You are that person who is more advanced with regards to the experiences that you've had, right? And so you're able to provide broad guidance over a long period of time. But as a result, when you're working with the individuals in your firm, you may notice particular skill sets where there might need some guidance, a little bit of correction here and there. And that's when you put on your coaching hat to provide those specific skill sets or particular types of help. Now, one of the things that I've often noticed when we're talking about this navigating this space of mentorship and coaching is, again, that push-pull between the mentee and the mentor. The idea that the mentee doesn't want to feel like a burden and doesn't want to take up space, yet the other side where the mentor feels too busy. And if we want to make this work, we have to have a balance between taking up space and being comfortable with that and making space. Without the synergy of the two, this cannot work, right? It's not just on the mentor to try and arrange things, and it's also not just on the mentee. And again, I know this is not always the easiest thing, particularly as a busy attorney. I have experiences where I've been the best mentor, and then some that I'm not so proud of because it's not an easy thing to do. But it is something that we can do when we're intentional. So I'm going to focus the rest of our time today on the make space portion in terms of making sure that we are able to create space for the individuals within our organizations. And so that framework that I'd like to introduce to you right here is called Make Space. The S stands for sharing. Sharing your time, sharing your experiences, sharing your actual physical space with individuals who might need it. Some of the most valuable experiences I have had in my professional journey stemmed from simply following another attorney around. I remember, I'm going to share two in particular. I remember one of my mentors is an amazing defense attorney in Houston, Texas. And I remember he allowed me to just sit in on his consultations. And I sat in on one where he quoted someone a significant fee, more than I had ever. I said, what? What? It was a couple. I said, huh? I was so shocked because in my experience from where I came from, I didn't see figures like that being thrown out. So it shook me a little bit, but it taught me something because this same attorney also won Pro Bono Lawyer of the Year. What this taught me as somebody who was coming from a lower income background was that sometimes in order to be able to give the way that you want to, you have to price appropriately, right? So that's a side thing, but it was just being in the room that helped me recognize that. That was something that he didn't even intend to teach me. But the fact that he made physical space available for me to be inside the room during that conversation, I was able to take that lesson with me. So we want to make space for that. We want to make space to share conversations. And then on the flip side, even though I'm talking about making space, I want you to feel comfortable asking for that when we're talking about taking up space. Again, one of the things that has been valuable to me has been being open about the areas where I don't know. And I know sometimes our younger generations are not super comfortable with that. In my preparation for this, one of the things I learned is that many of our young people are now turning to AI in order to get mentored. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are some tools and some things that can help you, but honestly, y'all, that's not going to be enough. There's going to be some things that you're going to find helpful just by being with the person, okay? So be comfortable taking space, or you might not feel comfortable. So let me say that. I'm not going to say be comfortable. I'm just going to say do it anyways. Do it even though it feels uncomfortable. I'll tell you another small story about being in the space and taking up space. One of the great defense attorneys in Houston was known to hang out at this one cigar bar. And I don't smoke. It's not something I like to do. But I had a DUI case that I wanted to handle. This is early in my career when I was still doing criminal defense. And I knew that he was really open about giving advice. So I took up that space. I went there. I said, I'll go to the cigar bar. Help me out with this case. And there was two of the older mentors who were there, and they were just so impressed that this girl who they know doesn't like to smoke, this girl who doesn't like this community, this space at all, came out there. They were like, "You're serious about trying to get help?" I said, "Yes. I care about my cases. I care about my clients. I'm going to go." So don't be afraid to do the uncomfortable. You don't have to do it all the time, but it can help, because he definitely gave me insights that were valuable for me. The next thing I want us to talk about is persisting. Persisting. It's important to take the time, right? The P is for making sure that you are taking this time and persisting in the relationship, persisting in reaching out to that person, or persisting in reaching out for your questions, right? It's that combination. It doesn't happen overnight. So yes, I met Pat, but then we decided that we would schedule an appointment together. And during that appointment, we also scheduled another one, right? We were going to make time and persist in that. One of the slides I'm going to show you in the coming up slides is some of the emails that were sent between that community. People were persistent about showing up and sharing their knowledge, and it makes all the difference. Next, let's talk about alignment and getting aligned, because I think that this is a big one. I think this is a really big one, an important one for us to talk about in terms of our communities. Oftentimes when we're talking about mentorship, many mentees do not feel like some of the goals in our organizations are aligned with theirs. They don't want to feel like you're just investing in them because it's about your bottom line. As I thought about that interaction with Pat, I kept on asking myself, why was it so impactful? I have had other mentors who I've had longer relationships with, but he made me feel like he genuinely cared about me and about my progress. He asked me, "What are you trying to achieve?" And the fact that he took that time and he genuinely cared made all the difference. If we can learn how to align the goals of our mentees with the mentors, we're going to see more traction and more success. Because if they don't feel like you actually see them or value them, they're not going to want to invest in you. One of the conversations that I've kind of heard also in our space is sometimes people are very, I don't want to say territorial about their hires, but that might be the term. In that once you've hired someone and you've invested in them, you're really disappointed if they decide to move on. Listen, we can't control people. And that's okay. That's okay. Now, if you make your space a place that is aligned with their goals, they're going to want to stay with you longer. But if there is ever a time that they feel like they need to go somewhere else for more growth, for more opportunity, you should be their biggest cheerleader. That might be your next best referral partner. You have no idea where that experience might take them. So be okay with letting the little birdie fly off. It's okay. It's all right. That investment is not lost. The investment in that relationship carries value and it matters. So be okay with that. All right, that's part of aligning your goals with theirs, is understanding that they are on their own unique career journey. Next, let's talk about challenging them, because this can be also a little uncomfortable. But it is important, if you are in a mentorship or coaching relationship, to challenge the person outside of their comfort zone. Right? And I think that this should happen both ways, not just mentor-mentee, but mentee-mentor. There are some things that some of our younger employees and staff members can bring to our organizations that will help us stand out in this new age that we're facing. And it is to our detriment to not even hear it. I've heard so many young attorneys complain like, yeah, this older attorney, he doesn't want to try this. He absolutely refuses. And what they're telling you is stuff that works for this new generation, this new workforce, this new spending organization. Because here's the thing, that younger generation is not only working, they are spending money. They are potential clients. So if they're giving you insights about them, take advantage of it. This is putting you at the front of the race. This is allowing you to stand out in ways that other competitors might not be. So you want to make sure that you're challenging each other both ways. For younger attorneys, listen to the insights of these older attorneys. It's super valuable. They know what they're talking about. Again, AI is powerful, but AI isn't everything, and AI makes mistakes. AI makes mistakes, okay? So let's listen to those who are trying to invest in us. And then finally, let's talk about empathy. Like I said, I think this has been the most powerful thing that I have experienced in terms of my professional career and the mentorship-mentee relationships. It's the fact that I've felt seen and that I've been able to see myself and others, and they have felt that. Those are the things that translate. Those are the things that create that sense of belonging. Those are the things that allow people to come back and say things like this. This was one of my former employees. And she said, working for you was the best foundation my career had and had a really outstanding and significant impact. It's been a pleasure to be able to learn and contribute to your firm. I really can't appreciate you enough for giving me a chance. I don't think words can suffice. Like, that's powerful. And the thing is that I know that this young lady is going to go out and make a difference in her world. I know that the ripple effect is not just going to end with me. I know that she is going to make a difference. And so one of the things that I wanted to just share when we're talking about some practical ways that we can also create this, right? I mentioned the idea of the one mentor. I want to propose some new mentorship models. One of the ones that I found to be highly effective is group mentorship. So like I showed you in the picture before, I was part of a group mentorship program. They assigned a couple of one-on-one mentorship or mentees and mentors, but oftentimes we were allowed to meet together. So I felt like all of the mentors were my mentors. And I knew I could call Troy and ask him about DUIs, and I could call Pat and ask him about appellate briefs, and I could call Mark and ask him about this, and I could call that person and ask them about this, because there wasn't pressure on one person to be the end-all be-all. So in our law firms, can we try something like that? Maybe it's not just one person. Maybe we're creating a group, right? And then, of course, you want to have structure. You want to have a way where you're saying, okay, this is how we'll persist on a regular basis. This is when we'll meet regularly. Those things help. But with technology, we can be flexible. Maybe it could be a Zoom meeting once a month, right? Maybe every other month it's in person, right? Because we want to be able to embrace where the world is headed. But we also want to make sure we're fostering those meaningful relationships. And so as I close, I believe that one of the things that are most powerful is those words that Maya Angelou said, where she said, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Let's make that our goal as we encourage the people in our teams to take up space, and as we make space for them to step into their leadership roles. Thank you. Now, we don't have too much time, but are there any questions? Oh, was that great? What? Feel free, if you have to go to the next session, please feel free. But if you have questions, you can ask them out loud.
Imposter syndrome as stepping into that mentor role. When I actually think about it, and I realize I should be a mentor, but also still feeling like I don't really know what I'm doing. Can I really impart that? Like, how do you fight that imposter syndrome?
Imposter syndrome shows up every day. It showed up this morning around 2 a.m. And the thing is that we have to remind ourselves that even if it's a little bit, that little bit helps, right? Because I don't have a 500 person team, but the little insight that I have can still help, can still be valuable. And I think it's really important. One of the things I considered adding to this was talking about transparency. I think being transparent about, I don't always feel super comfortable. It's still something valuable because that other person can feel like, okay, I'm not crazy to not feel that way. Particularly in our industry where we shy away from that and we all feel it all the time. It's okay. It's all right. But so I'm right there with you. Awesome. I think I have a question here and a question. Okay, we'll take that one and then that one.
Thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
So I am an attorney and we're fully virtual. So any tips, advice when you're trying to mentor and you can't have this wonderful in-person meeting? Because it's definitely harder to form those connections and relationships and convey certain things when you're fully just seeing people on a screen every day?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Many of my team members are virtual as well. And so one of the things is it's making the time and the space to ask about their lives and take interest in the professional aspirations that they've shared. So it's one of the things that's really important to me. Even when it comes to hiring, I want to know what your goals are, even if it's not to stay with me for a super, super long time, because I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of that. And I'm pointing things out during our working relationship that I think are valuable to that. So for example, let me use certain types of technology that I might implement. So I know a lot of people in my team are not as well versed in various technologies, but I know that where they want to be, it would be valuable. I'll take additional time and I'll say, hey, this thing, let me show you how I use this, because I think that this will be helpful to you here. And the fact that I do that, they love it. And I've heard they'll come back and say, oh yeah, I shared this here and people da-da-da-da-da-da. It's really helpful with regards to that. So it's taking that extra time to find out, okay, what are you actually interested in? And then that extra step to say, I'm going to spend time. We might have a little bit of a longer meeting where I'm answering this question. But again, it is about making that space for those interactions, even if it's virtual. Even if it's virtual. Awesome.
Love your presentation.
Thank you.
There's another aspect too in terms of creating a community where you really need to identify other lawyers that are struggling and offer mentorship to them when they're outside your firm, because it's a dying art in terms of mentorship, and people have to be so intentional in terms of mentorship. But we see a lot of solos going out before they're ready to go out, and there isn't a natural or a natural mentorship pool for them. And so thinking of them as being part of your net as well is really helpful, because it's good for everybody.
Absolutely. Actually, this group was something along those lines. So when I started, I was doing criminal defense and I was doing indigent representation. And Harris County Public Defender's Office had an innovative program. The way that they do indigent representation is not common. There's usually a list from private practice. And so they recognized that there were a lot of young attorneys who are really excited about opening up their practices, but they needed guidance from more experienced attorneys. So there was a group of experienced attorneys who mentored this group of newbies, right, who had their own little practices. So to your point, I completely agree with you. And it's one of those things to be, again, mindful of and pay attention. Thank you for that contribution. Thank you. All right. Well, I believe we are slightly over time. Oh, I'll take that last question, but we're a little over time.
I'll make it quick. Measuring success. So I run the mentoring program for the state of Illinois for all new lawyers. And that's one of the hardest things. Besides asking for direct feedback, it's hard to have quantitative measurement. Any suggestions or ideas?
I mean, like you said, oftentimes it's asking for that feedback, but then also, I mean, ratings and surveys and things like that. So one of the mentorship programs that I helped to create with the legal tech company that I was a part of was we went through and we would, I'm trying to remember exactly how, I'm trying to look at the spreadsheet in my head, but essentially every week when we would meet with our different teams, we would ask them about the specific goals that they had set the week before and when they had achieved it, when they had done one of those specific tasks, because this was more of a coaching program, we would mark that and we would identify how often were people actually showing up in terms of showing up for our meetings and how often were they doing the thing that they said they would do the week before. And so those were some small ways to measure it on an ongoing basis and to see, okay, is there something there? And then there was also like I don't like to use a homework component, but there was a task that was separate from their individual goals that we also wanted to see. Did you do the reading? You know, was it insightful to you? Was it valuable? And we use all of those elements to kind of measure, okay, are we making progress in this particular area? And I will also say there was an overall goal for the program at the end. We were trying to help them retain a certain number of clients. So we were tracking that as well. We were tracking that outcome as well as the specific habits. It reminds me of something that our speaker today, James Clear, talks about in terms of not just the overall outcome. He says winners and losers have the same goals, right? But their systems are different. So we love to measure systems. What actions are you taking? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you all so much. I hope you've had an amazing CleoCon experience, and I will see you around.